Yes, welcome, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our next virtual town hall, all powered by Sheppard Pratt and NAMI, Maryland. Today, it is all about men's mental health. We're talking about breaking the silence and empowering men to prioritize well-being, a topic that a lot of folks don't talk about, but we're going to talk about it today. So I'm one of your hosts, Ryan the Lion. You can hang out with me weekdays, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. inside the Lions Den on Max 95.9. I'm your co-host along with my brother here.
You already know what it is, man. Your boy Pork Chop, 6 to 10, Quicksilver Morning Show on 92Q. And we have the esteemed guests, like always, the black men that know what's going on with us, right? Let's start off with Mr. Willie. Mr. Willie, introduce your whole name and tell us where you're from.
Yes, my name is Willie L. Brown. I'm down in Waldorf. I volunteer with NAMI. I'm one of the family support group facilitators. I've also taught the family to family. You know, I'm also in my other life, I'm also an elder also, and I work a lot with mental health. You know, and I'm retired Air Force. I'm retired federal, and
thank you for your service, brother.
Thank you. I'm trying to retire again from doing my own thing.
I know that's right. I know that's right.
Right. I 3 retires, boy. I tell you, he is on it. And now we have Minister Shawn Freeman, the community activist. Talk to us, Shawn.
I'm Minister Shawn Freeman. I'm a resident of Baltimore, Maryland, and I am a father and a husband. But most of all, I'm a community activist that partners with We Are Us. And I also am a minister of Morning Star Baptist Church in Woodlawn, Maryland.
Okay. And last but not least, we have Ronald F. Means. MD, tell us where you're from as well.
Well, thanks, Pork Chop. Thanks for having me. So I'm Dr. Ronald Means. I am a psychiatrist. So for basic aspects of that, I specialize in mental health care, went to medical school and work to treat people with mental illness. My role is at Sheppard Pratt, where I'm one of the chiefs of medical staff, and I am primarily responsible for helping to manage all of our outpatient services and services that impact the community.
All right, but since we're talking about mental health of black men, has it gotten any better for us with the numbers of black men that's been coming to the doctor, coming to a therapist? How do y'all see how them numbers been from the last maybe 5 years or right before COVID?
So I think it's getting better. It's not where it needs to be because we have a long way to go. But it is getting better. I think with all the stigma around mental illness, there's been so much discussion about mental health care and ensuring that everyone gets good mental health care, especially with the aftermath of the pandemic, that even black men who were far behind the eight ball in terms of accessing mental health care for a variety of reasons that I know we'll talk about, I do think we're doing a better job reaching out, accessing services in a variety of ways.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Mr. Willie?
Yeah, I'm not a doctor, so I do a lot of work in the community, but I guess you would say it's good, but I think there needs to be some improvement. But I'm more interested in what's going on in the church a lot of times. Yeah, so establishing, because we know that, what do they say? 1 in 4 people in your congregation is normally suffering from a mental illness or a mental health issue, and a lot of time we in the church realm just now beginning to learn how to deal with that. So that's where I'm at. Matter of fact, we have starting a mental health ministry. Trying to work with our men, our community.
Well, I guess you could speak more on that, Mr. Freeman.
So I wanted to, speak to that and what Doc was saying. And I think the numbers are getting better for African American men, because I do the same thing as a clinician for another county. And so I see a lot more Caucasian and Hispanics more than African Americans that I deal with, because I deal with them coming out of the prison system, the homeless and stuff like that. But as far as the church, I see it not really being biased. for a number of reasons. We talk about ethnicity. I don't see it having any gender, so it's just a universal thing, and I don't think it is like to a place where it's just in one space. For me, not just the church, it's everywhere.
Right.
Now, you know what? I want to ask because a lot of folks, when we talk about mental health, I don't think a lot of folks even can identify really what that is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of brothers, I don't think they're thinking in that mind frame.
Mm-hmm.
So when you consider mental health, to each one of you, you know, what is that? What does that look like? You know, what is that definition for you? Let's start with you, Doc.
Yeah, sure. So there's the technical like mental health diagnoses that we treat. And that requires, you know, a diagnostician, a therapist, a doctor, a psychologist that diagnose a certain illness. And we define those illness by a certain number of symptoms that you might be having or suffering from. And then we give it a name, major depressive disorder or generalized anxiety disorder. And that helps guide the treatment that we then want to assign, whether we want to do a particular type of therapy or do a certain type of medication. Those diagnoses, by naming it, it allows us to provide better, more accurate care. But beyond that, there are lesser forms of mental health problems, right? That you might not necessarily meet a diagnostic criteria, but you might be suffering from daily stress or dealing with an emotional impact due to something that's going on in your life. And that is important to recognize too, because we want to get involved earlier in order to provide some care for folks with that less severe mental health issue so that it doesn't progress to more severe mental illness that requires more significant interventions.
For you, Mr. Willie?
Oh, go ahead, yeah.
Mm-hmm. What's mental health for you? What are you talking about?
I would say, I can't say that it's someone that's acting normal, because what is normality? So mental health is, to me, is when someone, because I deal with lived experiences. So I grew up around mental illness, you know. So when someone is, I guess you say maybe talking to themselves, but then, or someone that's not acting, that's acting kind of strange, you know, as a layman, that's what I would say, you know.
Right. How about you, Minister?
And for me, it's just a physical and emotional state of mind of well-being. And like Doc was talking about, is different types of symptoms. And so somebody has schizophrenia, right? And severe features. And somebody had bipolar, you know. So it's just how you classify it. But again, it's a universal thing. So you just can't just pinpoint it to, okay, a person talking to themselves on the street, because 9 times out of 10, a lot of our managers and our supervisors, they deal with mental health, but they just manage it through management.
I think that's what gets us in trouble sometimes, right? Where we try to define it as this sort of severe illness, right? Our mental health disorder, again, something that we can classify and put a title on, when in reality, you know, you could have more milder forms of mental health symptoms that require some sort of intervention. Maybe it's therapy, maybe it's, you know, some peer support, whatever it might be. And because we're looking for that big, bad diagnosis or that larger, well-defined collection of symptoms, we then miss getting treatment earlier on for the onset or the beginnings of that illness that might be presenting much earlier.
As a person that suffered from depression and anxiety, I found myself trying not to take my sertraline because I suffered 2 strokes at the end of last year. As Black men, how important or not important, because that's a big one, is about taking the meds for your whatever
diagnosis, whatever your diagnosis
with. Yeah.
So it varies. It varies. And I think that the most important part is that you get connected to care, and that you follow the treatment guidelines that care provider is giving, right? Because you might start out just seeing a therapist, and that therapist can't prescribe medications, right? But they might say along the way, you know what, things are getting more severe, and you really should see a psychiatrist or talk to your family doctor in order to consider some medications. Now, when that clinician has said, you know, I really think you need medicine and you should take it, then I do think that we should do a better job committing to taking that medication. I know there's a lot of stigma and concern about medications, again, that we can talk about, but it's important that once that treating provider says, hey, I really think you need this, that there is a commitment to take it, or at least a really good discussion about what your reservations might be. So that way it can all be on the table and everyone knows the expectations.
I will tell y'all, it was more of less of me taking a lot of pills. And I looked at sertraline as an extra pill. So I was like, if I got to wean myself off of anything, I think that would be the first one. Because when I first had it, they gave me 100 milligrams and I felt like a nutcase. Like it really made me feel bad. So then it went down. They was like, maybe you should take half. So I started taking half. But then my doctor and my primary care told me that, you know, it also messed with the manhood of taking it. So then I really was like, oh, well, some got to go, you know. But I understand what it did for me. It helped, but how do you go around the which pill to take mentally? Because I feel like a lot of black men probably need sertraline or have diabetes or have high blood pressure, and you got to take all of them, you know, so much. Is I'm on the, I guess we're going to use me as an example. Am I on the right track of not taking it, or should I be trying to get back into taking it?
Yeah, I think it's hard. I think people dismiss the benefits of it, and they give themselves all these kinds of reasons why they want to stop it, even if they've had benefit from it, right? It sounds like you actually had some good benefits from it in terms of your mood.
Yeah.
And because, you know, of so much stigma about mental health treatment and about mental health medications, when people are going through and trying to figure out what it is that they want to get rid of, they'll quickly get rid of the mental health medicines because they think that that's not important. When in reality, you know, having good mental health dictates how your somatic health, how your physical health is also going to go. If you're depressed, you're not going to take care of yourself physically, right? You're going to be less compliant with your diet and your other medications. So it all works together. And that's why I just stress having those conversations and just being upfront. When I give men antidepressants, I say to them, when I give anyone antidepressants, I say to them very clearly, look, maybe about a third of people might have some sexual side effects to them. You just let me know if that happens. Like the minute it happens, you tell me, and we're going to work around it, and we're going to figure out how to, you know, help that resolve, because your sexual health is important too. But you got to have the conversation so that way, you know, your concerns are aired.
Right.
Now, all right. So we talked about, you know, we touched on a lot of stuff that we really need to talk about: symptoms, stigma, and all these kind of things. But if someone is not understanding what's going on with them, how do they know they're not mentally well? Like how, you know, because there's degrees to all of this, right? Before someone can even seek help, they got to identify that they have a problem, right? Like they need some assistance, to go get some assistance. So how does someone say, you know, to themselves, like, man, I think I need to go get help? Like, how do they know that they're not mentally well?
So if I could just, you know, interject. So far as one of the things we do is we go based off of hospitalizations, right? So if they get a number of hospitalizations and they're constantly in there, and then they'll put them on the psych unit, and then the social worker end up reaching out to an agency that deals with mental health, which will supply a case manager, a prescriber, a psych doctor, and stuff like that. And then they get referred to a mental health place. And so, you know, a lot of times, like I have a young man, for instance, he's biracial. He is 23 years old. Now, he suffers from schizophrenia full, but he doesn't want to accept the fact because, number one, his dad had schizophrenia. his dad had schizophrenia. And so it's just a repeated cycle. And he saw what that done. So again, he puts on the facade as, everything is good. So what he does is, instead of taking the meds that he's prescribed from his psych doctor, he smokes marijuana. But he doesn't understand that marijuana triggers it even more.
Wow.
And so he just goes out to the left field once he smokes marijuana. But again, he's a young man, and culture says that this is what they do at that age. So he doesn't want to be, out there looking like, oh, I'm looking weird or anything. So, we just redirect them and tell them, look, you have to stay med compliant.
All right. Why everybody just join us right now. Welcome to Radio 1's Minority and Mental Health, Breaking the Silence, Empowering Men to Prioritize, presented by NAMI, Maryland, Sheppard Pratt. You can drop your questions right now in the comments in the chat. And big shout out to www.sheppardpratt.org, 410-938-3000. NAMI Maryland is here for you. Visit NAMI Maryland, MD.org. All right.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the things we face as Black men, in our culture and life that can lead to some of these mental health issues because we talked a little bit about some, generational, situations, but there's just some life situations that brothers are going through that are taking them over the edge sometimes. And we know we live in a society where men are not allowed to be vulnerable. We're not supposed to show weakness. We're not supposed to show emotion that much. We got to hold it down. So let's talk about some of these stigmas and maybe some of the ways that we can maybe break that stigma. You want to talk, Mr. Willie? Because I know you deal with a lot of folks volunteering with NAMI. I know you probably deal with a ton of folks in different situations.
Well, the thing about what I deal with a lot of times is our sisters, and sometimes we don't have many men, especially African American men, and that's one of the questions that I have asked. Where are our brothers? I know we have some mental health issues, and so I don't deal a lot with that. Hopefully, it will get better, So
you're not seeing a lot of men.
We're not seeing them not in our group. We've just now had some men in our group that's having some problems, having some issues, with loved ones. But it's just now happening. I guess it's because of the stigma. We don't. We're weak if we say that we have a mental health issue. So it's considered weakness, being weak. So we have to get over that. Because we do have mental health, and in our society, talking about our society. I mean, there's so much going on in our society. I was listening to you talking about schizophrenia. A lot of times, men, African American men, we're paranoid. Not meaning that we're suffering from paranoid or schizophrenia, but we're paranoid because of our society, what our society has done to us. And this hasn't just started. I remember when I was a young man, and I'm 73 now. So I remember when I was a young man, and I was in California, and I was running. I was dating my wife, and I was running down the street, and the first thing I saw the state police. And I said, now he gonna think that I done stole something because I was in a nice neighborhood, So those are the things that we go through, and those are the things sometimes we're paranoid, but we're not sick. We don't have a disorder. It's our society and the racism and what's going on in our society, So we got to deal with that.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Willie. I think it's a combination of those things that keep men from coming to your door and being in your groups, right? Because, it is that stigma about mental health, mental illness and mental health treatment, right? And men being vulnerable and not needing to ask for help. But it's also the additive effect that we do as Black men have unique stressors, right? We have systemic racism that impacts us. We have higher rates of economic distress that impacts us. We have numerous family members that might be suffering from, all the repercussions of inequities in this world. And all of that does impact us. But at the same time, because we're men, because we're Black men, we are leery about seeking treatment because of the shame, because of the ego hit, and also because of some skepticism about medical treatment in general, but especially mental health treatment. So it's that bad combination that keeps men, especially Black men, from knocking at the door and getting help in order to be better.
Yeah, it seemed like that Tuskegee experiment is still in our blood, generation after generation, and men don't want to even go to the regular hospital. Like, I had homeboys that know they need to be at the doctor. Like right now, they need to go to the doctor, but they just won't. They'd rather go through pain and be scared that somebody think they're weak and ashamed of the doctor. Man, how do somebody get to tell your friend? How do we try to push them to go into the doctor anyway?
Well, I think that's what we're doing now, right? It's all about having these conversations amongst us. It's these conversations that change things, because when we start speaking about it like it's commonplace, right? When I say, oh, I went to go see my therapist today, or me and my wife are in couples therapy, or, I took my kid to go to the psychiatrist, people then realize like, oh, we can speak about that freely. And then that's allowable. That it encourages people to seek their own treatment. Or we talk about our own weaknesses and why we sought the treatment. Oh, I was having trouble getting out of bed every day, or, I was feeling sad most of the days and I didn't know why. It's those kinds of conversations, if we can have them openly, that will allow us to then, be vulnerable and seek that care that we need.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is another group also out here now that are not therapists, but they're trained in mental health, to a certain degree, and that's coaches, mental health coaches. So, and they're not therapists, but they have a responsibility to, if they see that they have a problem that they can't deal with as a mental health issue, they need to refer you to a therapist. But a person may be more open to go see a coach.
Mm-hmm. Especially brothers, especially men. Yeah.
Right.
I was about to say, I think that even the term itself is more appealing. Because that word therapist, for a lot of folks in our community, they like, man, ain't nothing wrong with me. I ain't got to see nobody. I don't have to talk to nobody. But a coach is something that, many of us have had throughout the years. I think that's something therapists maybe need to adopt a little more, man, and change that nomenclature, just so it's more acceptable and more open for folks, Now, you guys just talked about something that made me think, because support, right? Especially if someone's not taking themselves or diagnosing themselves, or say, you know what, man, I need some help, or, I got to go see somebody. If you're around a family member or a loved one, a friend or something, and you're like, man, I know something's wrong. He's not acting right. He's not, moving right, thinking right. How do you approach someone, to kind of say, hey, man, I think, you might need to get a little help? Because to say something like that to somebody, to some folks, you may offend them.
Right.
You may rub them the wrong way. Right. And that could, set things off in a whole nother way. So how can you approach somebody, and kind of like in a positive way, where you can be like, you can really connect with them and maybe help them go get some care?
Well, Ryan, I just think you can, plant the seed, and, whether they want to acknowledge or give great examples, right? But the reality is, some of our Black men don't have insurance, and so they can't afford the right medical assistance that they need. And so a lot of times, they self-medicate and they just dealing with it.
Yeah, and sometimes that ends up not being so good.
Right, and that's when hospitalizations take place, and you start seeing them get locked up frequently. And sometimes that is the only way that they can get assistance. Mm-hmm. It's sad, but that's the reality.
Yeah, it's true. Substance use issues and men end up being often a symptom of that underlying mental health issues, and we all know the substance issues are higher rates in men. in large part because of what we're talking about, them not accessing the mental health treatment that we need to maybe head off using substances as a means of coping with it.
We have a question from TS that's watching on YouTube Live with us. The question is, what I do not understand is when my son is going to therapy or counseling, they told me they could not discuss what they talked about. So how can I help him if I don't know what the issues were? That is a great question because
especially
I
for
remember going to therapy for myself. The first thing they said was, this is between me and you and not me, you and your wife. And I was like, really? Like, so how she or him or anybody supposed to know how to help?
Yeah, it's important. It's an important, good question because when someone's in mental health treatment, there's a lot of protections you put in place to make sure that what is discussed stays in that space, because that's some of the power with mental health care, right? That you can go and know that I can give freely of my emotion and my thoughts, and that it's not going to get out to people. I don't know how old the son is, but if the son is an adult, then there's no question about it. There's nothing, that information can't be revealed by law. If the son is a minor, then usually there can be a back and forth with the therapist about ways that maybe some information can be communicated to the parent, like key information. But maybe information that is more protected to the youth could stay with them so that you can earn some trust with the youth and have them feel free to divulge information to you without worrying that it's going to get back to their parent.
I was going to say, because if you're a parent, I think it's you got to know a little bit what's going on. That wouldn't even make sense, though,
Absolutely. Yeah, I see kids all the time, and I always make sure that I have some protected space for the kid, but also let them know that there's going to be some stuff that is discussed with the parents too, as well, and bring the parent in maybe for a separate session or together with the child.
Gotcha.
Then, Chop, you can get both parties to see if they want to sign a consent form to be able to let that parent know what they reveal in their session is okay to reveal it to the mom as well too, if they're up to it.
Hopefully your answers will get to the guy TS right now, to your old woman. He just said TS.
I think also that, and this is because of HIPAA, I know that's why, they have those restrictions, but you can also write a letter and tell what's going on to that person therapist. Now, they don't have to answer you, but you can let them know what's going on in your household, even if they're grown, even if they're over 21.
Okay.
Now, mental health issues, we talked about some youth, having some issues. When you're dealing with, kids versus maybe grown men, do you guys approach it the same way? Do you, is it the same kind of principle process in helping, kids versus adults? It's like mental health, just like this blanket thing, or you attack it that way, or do you kind of have to navigate it a little differently because they're kids?
Yeah, so in terms of mental health clinicians, if you want to treat kids, you generally have to have additional training. So, even as a psychiatrist, I had to do 2 additional years to be able to treat kids, in large part because it gets more complicated. It's more tricky. The mental health disorders that appear in adulthood or manifest in adulthood don't quite look the same when they're in kids. And the issues and how to approach kids vary. So it does take it's a little bit more complex when dealing with youth along the age range, whether it's little kids or adolescents, and understanding what mental health disorders might be impacting them, and therefore how to begin to tease all that out, and also how to interact with the parents, but other entities like the school system too, which adds an additional layer of complexity when you're working with youth.
And then you also, get with the parent and the child to see what the diagnosis is, the site provider and the clinicians, and they can also do a treatment plan directed towards, what they are experiencing as well.
And NAMI, we're not therapists. We're people with lived experiences, but we do have programs, that will work with a parent and a child if they're having a problem, and I'm sure that we will refer. In that area, I don't normally work with in that program, but there are programs. If you go to NAMI.org or NAMIMaryland.org, you'll see, I believe it's NAMI Basic, that will work with a parent and their child when they're having issues, but they don't do any therapy, but they'll work with you and help you to understand, and maybe what you might need to do or referring out.
If you're just joining us again, is Pork Chop from 92Q, Ron and Line from Magic 95.9, along with our esteemed guests. Welcome to Minorities and Mental Health, Breaking the Silence, Empowering Men to Prioritize, presented by NAMI Maryland and Sheppard Pratt. You can drop your questions right here in the chat down there. You can call Sheppard Pratt at 410-938-3000 or visit NAMIMD.org. It's a lot going on with us men, man. What's up with us black men? Why? We're the last line of defense, and it's always just feel like we're the ones that take the brunt of everything. No matter what goes on in the world, the black man is looked at as the one to just have more fight in us than any other species of human beings. The black man is always number one on the list for everything that's bad.
Got the weight of the world on our shoulders.
Right. But to be honest with you, we do take a lot, right?
Yeah.
Because of who we are, right? And a lot of us really don't know who we are, right? But we take the blunt hit because that's who God called us to be, the head. And so even with that being said, a lot of times men suffer in silence because of the stigma, right? And so therefore, we don't want to be vulnerable to show someone else our weakness. And so what we'll do is internalize all of that, but we're still suffering from a lot of past trauma too. And so it's only so much you can harbor inside of you. It's just like, at any given time, you can snap at the blink of an eye. And, if you don't know how to control that emotion, it'll just fester out in the wrong way because we do suffer in silence.
And I think you need to be there for. I have sons. My youngest son is 51. So you have to be there and be open and if they need to come to you, need to talk to you without making a judgment on them. You need to be open and allow them to come to you and talk to you about what's going on. Why what kind of problem they may have, or if they you look like they're not being themselves. So you have to just be open. You got to be their support system for them, because we need, I would say that everybody needs to be able to talk to someone, especially someone that's close, that's not going to make a judgment, is going to sit there and hear what you have to say.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's why men in general, but especially black men, manifest mental illness differently often, right? Because it ends up being behavior or action, and that's a representation of the mental health symptom. It ends up being aggression or substance use or, sometimes criminality that actually is the manifestation of stuff that's been lingering for a long time, whether it be, traumatic occurrences that happen in childhood or depression or the impact of systemic racism and all the impacts of the history of our country. Unfortunately, because we're leery about asking for help, we also take it on and we own it, which makes the problem even worse instead of, reaching out for that help and helping to relieve it and share it and give it up so that you're not carrying it all on your shoulders.
It's crazy too, because, bringing in our sisters, they have mental health issues as well. Right. But we're in the same community, same culture, but it seems like they are so more willing to go see somebody, go talk to somebody and get help. Why is it so free, for them to be able to do that and we're not? Is this? It's so crazy.
Ryan, I can answer that for you myself, and I'm not an expert. The women talk to each other. They have group chats. They go on trips. They do everything that women's supposed to do, right?
Yes, self-care.
It's easy for them to talk. You feel me? They talk all day long with each other. Man, you only speak when I see you in the hallway.
Okay. And we don't talk about nothing real for real. I mean, when
But me and you are different. We're friends. But when it comes to the men, even think about your 5 group friends that you talk to, the 5 that you know that you have a relationship with. You really don't even really talk to them about talking. We don't really get things off our chest unless we're asked. And even when we're asked, we're apprehensive about even that. Because something could be really going on with you. Yo, you okay? You all right today?
All right.
Yeah, I'm cool. But right in the back of your mind, you know you need to tell somebody how you feel to get that off your chest. I don't think black men got that in them still.
Yeah,
We need
I
to
agree.
find that way.
I think black men, I think men in general, I mean, I think that's why we struggle more with mental illness. You know, men are at almost a 4 times higher risk of dying from suicide. But, you know, you would never think that because men are never engaged in mental health services and women are more often represented there. But it doesn't make sense because it's, you know, if anything, we need to be engaged more since we're more at risk of dying from suicide. But you're right, is women have it down packed. They're not, I mean, we're generalizing, but they're just so much better with that skill set of reaching out for help, being in a group, establishing their support network, vocalizing their emotions. And we got to catch up if we want to be better.
So we
Ron, somebody got a question over there for you too, man.
All right, so let's head over comments from Drukinu Nolan watching on YouTube. Their question is, what I need to understand is how educated mental health workers, ER nurses, don't listen to parents when they say the behavioral health personnel is advising for a child minor to be committed.
Ooh, we're getting technical here. That's a more technical one. It's a challenge, right? Because you know, as much as we're talking about accessing mental health services and wanting people to reach out, there's also certain types of mental health services that are limited, and we need to bolster those and have more of those services. And it's really hard in an ER setting, an emergency room setting, when someone's coming up for mental health services to fully figure it all out sometimes. And sometimes there's mishaps and mistakes. And sometimes there's other reasons why you can't access the type of service that you think, you know, your loved one might need. So it gets complicated, especially in an emergency room setting where everything feels, you know, really urgent and the stakes are high.
That's really a good point too, because you know, we talk about men ourselves being stubborn, but you could have some loved ones that are like, "Hey, ain't nothing wrong with you, you know, man, you okay?" And that's problematic as well. You know. So
you gonna say something, Mr. Willie?
No, I was going to say I think that's where stigma comes in. You know, you all right, nothing wrong with you. You know, so just suck it up. Go on, you're a man.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, and that's what we got to break. We got to be educated about, you know, stigma and that, you know, if there's something wrong, you need to get help. You need to go to a therapist. You know, you need to go to a coach and then let them get referred to a therapist or go to a therapist. You know, and we got to learn that there's nothing wrong with that.
You better get the crying, black man. Crying. That pressure, that's your body is meant to cry when you have pressure on yourself anyway. That's why you cry. To release it. And to sit there and not cry, man, I feel like all 5 of us had moments in our life, and every man, where you couldn't take it. You had to cry. Like you had to get it off your chest, and they'll seek help. How can someone watching right now, and this is for all 3 of y'all, especially Sheppard Pratt, Dr. Mings, and Mr. Willie, if they need somebody to talk to right now, what can they do?
Well, you can call the NAMI, you know, hotline. You can call 988, you know, and talk to someone. You can talk to a counselor, or you know, you can call one of those numbers and see if you can get some help. They'll talk to you.
Is that anonymous? Is that anonymous, or you know, or is that like somebody could just pick up the phone and don't have to say their name, just tell you what's going on with them and get some help?
I'm not sure whether that's anonymous. I'm thinking about 988 because I have used 988 before, you know. So I'm, of course, being military, they direct me to someone that's a military counselor, you know. So I'm not sure whether I didn't have a problem with giving my name out, but if you have a problem, maybe they can, be anonymous,
Mr.
I'm
Willie,
not
we
sure about
already
that.
know you ain't had no problem. We know.
3
We
retirement.
already
No, 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 no. I can't say I didn't have another problem because I was taken to a psychiatrist when I was 11 years old.
Mm.
Yeah, because I would sit on my bed and I would cry, and because I was raised by my aunt and uncle, and I would sit on my bed and cry. I would have headaches, and they took me to and they were not educated, and I wonder why did they know or they didn't have a fear of taking me to a psychiatrist, and they took me to one. Now of course the psychiatrist said, okay, now I wasn't eating either. He said, if you don't eat nothing in 2 weeks, we're gonna send you away. Guess
Mm.
what? I'm still here.
already.
All right, give
Already.
thanks. Give
Yeah, so
thanks.
I started eating. So but it's we as men we have got to get over that because you know we're not living the life that we could live. We're not being there for our families that we could be there for them. So we got somehow we have got to get over that. We have men that are mental health. I would say experts. Don't be afraid to use them. I know that a lot of times we're afraid because, like the mental health system, and we're going back to the Tuskegee, experiment. That we sometimes we have to be afraid of. We're afraid of healthcare. But and mental health care. But you know, you can ask questions. Don't be afraid. Doctors are not God. They are people that God has given them knowledge. So now I'll get off my soapbox.
No, you did.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Willie. I think NAMI is a great resource and will help people find resources regarding mental health treatment. 988, you can call, you can text. Clearly, the person that you speak with is going to want to get your information so they can link you to services. But it can be just a one-time, hotline call as well. And you don't have to identify yourself. I mean, it's always best that we do that so that way, again, they can link you to the right services that you might need. The complex part about accessing mental health services, unfortunately, sometimes is dependent upon insurance and payment and that kind of stuff, and that makes it complicated. But there's so many different options now: online therapy or clinics that are located in areas to serve those with medical assistance or Medicaid. There's just a lot of options, and the point is just to reach out. There'll be someone to guide you along the way. You can call Sheppard Pratt, and we have a care navigation team that will help guide you as well and know about what insurance you might have and where you could then get services. Just reach out and ask the question. But 988 is a great resource and will help guide you as well.
And that's very important, man. And we did get confirmation, and thank you, Doc. It is anonymous, just in case somebody just wants to call and just speak about an issue that they may be going through. So safe spaces and resources for us men to use. So we got another question here from Dallas Last Chop.
Yeah, I like that name. My son named Dallas. I hear that there's a spike in suicide rates among younger Black men since COVID. Is that true? And if so, will we ever recover from the damage that the isolation of the whole mess that left us with COVID and everything?
Yes, absolutely true. There has been an increase in suicide rates among Black men, Black youth in general. Quite alarming. For a long time, again, part of that stigma, the Black population thought we were protected, had some protective factor against suicide because suicide rates were higher amongst majority populations. And sadly enough, with COVID and the aftermath of it, the suicide rates of Black youth in particular have crept up. Is it all the pandemic? Maybe. Are there other stressors in the world that are causing it? I'm sure. Will we recover? I can only predict or hope and pray. I think we'll get there. But again, accessing mental health services more readily and being there to provide care for those is the key part of it. And using folks to even just educate and discuss is key in order to get past this and help improve everyone's well-being.
I feel like we're on the right track. Speaking of what Mr. Willie was talking about and myself, I have tried to commit suicide twice. And like Mr. Willie said, we're still here. So, thank God for just the guidance of whatever the purpose he has for us on earth right now. And that's why we're here today, to let someone that's watching know that there's 5 black men that you can listen to, talk to, and probably went through the same thing. Some of us didn't have mothers, some of us didn't have fathers growing up. Some of us was poor, had to eat, had to fend for ourselves as teenagers. Like, there's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
So no matter what you're going through, whoever is watching this, believe me, us 5 can tell you that we've been there.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes we going through it as adults, So it's always just growth. So if you're looking and you're right now wanting to know, you need somebody to talk to, please call those numbers, 410-938-3000, 988 for NAMI, right, Mr. Willie?
Yeah, NAMI has a hotline also.
Okay.
If they go to NAMIMaryland.org, they'll have the number of their hotline on there.
And
or you can go to NAMI.org. Either one.
Just some love right now. We here to love you. That's most of the time black men don't get no love.
Right.
Like, we are definitely forced into doing work, being strong, and that's it. Like, no, we need hugs too. Give me a hug when you see Pork Chop.
Need love. It's like Father's Day, man, versus Mother's Day and all these holidays. It's just not the same kind of attention, just not the same kind of love. So, brothers, man, we need love too. But we got to allow ourselves to be loved. We got to really open up. Yep. We got to open
for that
up.
hug, you got to have your arms open. Somebody want to hug you, take the hug. Like Minister Freeman, I know this don't have nothing to do, but I want to piggyback off of what Ryan said about Mother's Day and Father's Day. Is that the same look how Men's Day and Women's Day be in church? Does Men's Day get a, hey, Men's Day? Or do we just like Father's Day?
Bro, it's, to be honest, it's the same way, right? And so again, right, that stigma there. But I still say, as a man, right, you can't love anybody until you know how to love yourself first, right? And so what I mean by that is, right, and I'm going to go biblical, Pork, and I hope you guys don't mind. The Bible says in Romans chapter 12, verse is 2, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And sometimes, bro, we get so stuck in a place of hurt and condition that we forget all about us. And so we carry bad behaviors into new relationships, and we haven't dealt with ourselves. And so until we know how to deal with ourselves, we're no good for anybody else. And so, yes, it does get that same thing. So whenever a guy starts loving himself and getting self-care, then a female or someone say, well, they thinking highly of themselves, right? But again, she doesn't look good if you ain't good. Because you guys are compatible, but you make each other. And so you guys look better as a team versus not a team. And so I say to any man, get what you need, not in a bottle, not trying to sex it out or smoke it out, but start getting those vacations, even if you got to get you. Some guys like to get pedicures and all that, whatever your thing is.
Right.
You get what you need. Hit the gym, get that self-care for yourself. So then you can start feeling better about self. So you'll know how to love somebody else.
I think that's so true because someone who, of course, has also suffered from anxiety and depression throughout life. One of the biggest things for me when I'm going through something like that is I withdraw myself. I take myself away from my family, and I'm a big, I got 2 boys. I'm a big dad guy, sports dad. And, I'm always playing with my kids. But whenever I'm going through like some kind of depression spell or anxiety, something, I withdraw myself. I'm alone. I don't want to be around anybody. I don't want anybody to see me like this. I don't want to pass on this energy that I have. And learning how to cope with that, learning how to deal with that, learning how to, address those things was part of, a long process for me, and what brought me to recognition was my family saying, look, we need you around. Like, you disappearing during these times. My wife would be like, look, man, you've been downstairs in the basement for dumb long now. Like, what's going on? And it took something like that for me to recognize that I was doing this, because in my own head, I'm like, I'm just taking time for me right now. Like, but I'm not doing anything healthy. I'm worrying about problems. I'm overthinking stuff. So for a lot of brothers, I think, recognizing that you need to do something, man, is so important, and that gets me to prevention. Is there tips or is there things that we can tell our fellas that, try doing these things, like the self-care, take care of yourself, love on yourself? What are maybe some other things that brothers can do?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I just want to give, major props to you, Ryan, and Pork Chop, for even speaking about your own personal experiences, right? That's part of what we need to do. The fact that you guys voice your histories and your problems with mental health issues along the way is that's part of the missing puzzle piece that we have. Because again, we have all that shame and stigma where, well, I can't speak about that, it's not allowed. As part of that, we have to redefine strength, right? We talk so much about strength and men, strength, and we have to redefine strength for us and what that means. And part of it is taking care of yourself and expressing your vulnerabilities and talking about your weaknesses. That is strong too. In order to, keep, the mental health symptoms away, I always encourage as much balance in your life as possible. I know we all need to work and support ourselves and our families, but you have to take time for yourself. You have to eat right. You have to sleep right. That's a big one. There's more and more research coming out about the impact of sleep. And when your sleep gets disrupted, it just triggers everything. You got to get out there and exercise and get some sunshine on our skins, because that helps make us feel better as well. And most importantly, you have to build a network around you. You have to build a support system. Whatever happens in terms of mental health treatment, the people that have the best outcomes are the people that have built a support network around them, right? Because they can use that support network to pick them up when they're starting to slip. And that's always the case. So we have to work on building that support network and using them whenever we're struggling.
Well, I'm gonna make sure you part of my network, Dr. Mings.
Okay.
I'm happy to be so.
Don't worry,
you guys, welcome to the network.
me, you, Minister Shawn, and Big Willie. We going to Cancun soon.
All right, as long as you're paying, sounds good.
Look, he's sharing his caring. So
sharing his caring. Let me ask you, Minister, because we're talking about things that can help. Prevent some of these things. Faith-based groups are a big space for people to, feel free. They find the word, and that shows and gives some kind of comfort to folks. What's some of the things you guys are doing within your ministry to help out as well?
Well, one of the things is reaching out more to men in this type of arena, right? Because again, the majority of the churches are predominantly filled with women, right? And the guys aren't really seen. So it's like we try to touch bases with them. We try to do outreach ministry with them. We try to make sure we do game nights with them and stuff like that, man. So to connect the brothers, barbershop nights, to connect positive brothers, even if they ain't positive, but they can see the modelship of someone trying to lead the way in a new avenue of where they used to be at, right? And I think that's what it takes for a lot of us is we got to have an example, man. You know what I mean? We can talk a good game, but it's like when you're dealing with somebody who's been traumatized, bro, they don't want you to tell them nothing.
Right.
And so if you're not modeling it, then they're not listening to it. And so I think that's where we had to start. Hey, listen, it got to be bigger than church, right? It got to be bigger than the mental illness. But you have to be in a place that you have a relationship with your God whoever he or entity it might be. But you have to communicate with someone who really holds you accountable and love you. And so those are the things that we need, whether we're in a church or in a bowling alley, right? We need somebody to really hold us accountable, because like poor child, you know, he limping and ain't nobody saying, look, man, I see something different about you, and ain't telling him, is that truly your friend? So I want him to get the care that he needs, because I care for him as a friend. And so again, that's what we have to start showing, that we care for other Black men, whatever the stigma looks like.
And I think also someone said this earlier, that you should, you know, you have to care for yourself. I'm dealing with a problem, and some issue, and I lean on my faith. Like I said, I'm a minister also, and I lean on my faith, because I even had and I see a therapist, and the therapist said, your faith. She asked me, how do you get through this? I said, well, it's because of my faith, you know. But not only that, because you know the Bible says faith without work is dead, you know. So therefore, I believe that all knowledge comes from God. You know, I believe that he's given it, and the psychologists, the psychiatrists, medical doctors, you know, that he's given them this knowledge, you know. So we need to use that, what God has given us. He's given us because we're in a fallen world, and he's given us that for us to be successful, you know. So we need to use them, you know, and not be afraid. Like I say, matter of fact, I did tell my therapist, I said, you know something, 40 years ago, you wasn't no good to me, because I didn't believe in therapists. She said, well, what happened? And I won't go through the history, you know, because because I do now, you know. But I do believe in my faith, and I believe that God wants us to use whatever means he has given us. That does not make you weak. That makes you strong, you know. So you use whatever he's given you.
Willie, I know one thing. When Christmas comes, I'm coming over your house because you got a new grandson. I'm coming mess with Willie.
Okay. I got
It's
a lot
gonna
of
be
grandkids.
before the Cancun trip or after the Cancun trip?
If we go to Cancun this year, it's gonna be before. And we would love to thank the esteemed panel for taking your time out. Believe me, because I hope that somebody watch this, shows someone of their loved ones, you know, bring them to the forefront, grab somebody's hand and be like, if you need help, let's go. I'll go there with you, you know. So we thank all three of y'all. For Mr. Willie, we'll let you go first. Any last words from NAMI?
Well, NAMI has, like I said, NAMI has a lot of programs. All our programs are free. We're the large, and most people that know about NAMI know we're the largest mental health grassroots organization in the country. You know, and we're free, and we're there for you. You know, you can call our helpline. You know, we have family support group. We have family classes. You know, and all of those are to help you. You know, so we're there for you.
All right, Minister Shawn Freeman, your last words.
Yes, my last words to anybody that's streaming online, that it is okay to ask for help. You don't have to suffer in silence, and you don't have to worry about what people think about you, because at the end of the day, right, if they're not growing with you, they can't go with you. But at the other end of that is that they don't have a heaven or hell to put you in. So get what you need for your mental health.
And what church you attend and minister at?
Morning Star Baptist Church in Woodlawn, Maryland.
That's on Woodlawn Drive right here?
Yes, across. Yes, sir.
All right, got you. And Dr. Means.
I mean, what do you say to follow that? Minister Freeman said it all. If you need help, just reach out, and there's a number of avenues to do that. If you want to call Sheppard Pratt, we will help guide you towards what you need, but certainly use all the resources we talked about today and get the help that you need.
All right, and lastly, www.sheppardpratt.org, and the number is 410-938-3000. And NAMI, Maryland is here for you. Visit NAMIMD.org. Round the line.
I just want to say, brothers, You are not alone, okay? Whatever you are experiencing, someone else has also went through those same issues. So there's help out there. Open up, get the help, and let's get better. Because again, like we said earlier, if you're not at your best, you can't be your best for somebody else and the people that you love. So let's just get the help and let's get better, fellas.
Yeah.
What's up, Chop? End
No,
it up.
if I'm gonna end it like this. A lot of people look at me and you, Ryan, as the cheerful guys. We smile a lot, we laugh a lot, but what you don't see is the stories we tell y'all behind our, on here, that we're both fathers, we both have families, and it's very hard to smile. If anybody that don't do medicine or not, if you think you're not going through nothing, man, it is hard to wake up, smile all day, go somewhere. I gotta go to the market, smile. I am pork chop 18 hours of the day. The only time I'm Johnny is when I'm home with my son. So believe me, we know what you're going through. So if you need me to take or call with somebody with you, if you know me and you see me out and you need some help, I'll help you right there on the spot. Minister, I have prayed with people inside the club and let the record go off.
Yes,
I don't play about God. If you need me to pray for you and we got to pray, we'll pray. That music will be right there when we get back to it.
Okay.
Yeah. That's it, man. Y'all have a good one. I'm
y'all.
going to Jamaica Friday. I see you guys when I get back.
Self-care. And he ain't taking us, fellas. See what I'm saying?
Right. We got to wait on the next trip, Ryan.
Okay.
All right.
Brothers, thank you so much.
Dr. Ron and Minister Shawn, I see y'all when I get back.
Listen, man, enjoy. Nice meeting you all.
Been a pleasure, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate